Living in Florida means living with the possibility of hurricanes, flooding, and severe weather. While storms can bring uncertainty and hardship, they also reveal something extraordinary: the resilience of people who call Northport home. In this special episode, you'll hear firsthand stories from city employees and public safety professionals who experienced some challenging moments during hurricane season. Their stories are about perseverance and the determination to serve others when it matters most. Our first story comes from Jason Bartolone, Public Information Officer for the City of Northport. During Hurricane Ian, Jason was responsible for helping keep residents informed as conditions rapidly changed. He shares the challenges of communicating during a disaster and the lessons learned from one of the most significant storms Northport has faced. Here's Jason's story.
So during Hurricane Ian, I was part of the city's emergency team that responds after a disaster. I'm part of the incident command structure that the city has created, where employees are assigned to a special emergency role, and it may be different from what they do day to day. My role is the public information officer. So I work in the city's EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, right under the emergency manager, along with all the other departments and teams that are working around the clock to respond to a disaster. And my role is, as the PIO, is to make sure the public is informed, just like it sounds. It's a situation where we are assigned to come and work even before the disaster strikes, and we expect to be here throughout the duration. Part of our emergency role everyone signs up for here at the city. We all understand the expectation as a public servant that we're going to be called into action. And so, along with many other city employees, it's my responsibility to make sure that my family is prepared, make sure my home is prepared. I can be here present to work and fulfill my duties. There were some really challenging and really frustrating times during Hurricane Ian, especially when we lost our connection. We lost our connectivity. And I can remember being in the room where we were working on little sleep. Everybody's at a very high stress level. Everybody's worried about their families back home and making sure that they're okay. And we can't even now connect with them. There's no cell service. We were relying on maybe one person in the entire building that was able to get a signal to help get the word out to their loved ones, first and foremost, and then to try to get information out. As a communicator, it's what we do. It's what we do every day. And we do it in so many different ways. It's so easy to send an email, to update our website, to make a Facebook post or post on Instagram. When you can't do those things all of a sudden, it's extremely frustrating. And so we had to push past that and figure out, okay, let's go back to basics. How can we get information to people? What can we put on a flyer and deliver over to the local Publix now that they've reopened, or to a gas station? What are the key messages that we really need to get to people? Who can we reach out to at Sarasota County and let them know that we want to get this really important message out to the people of Northport? Or who can we reach in the media to help us? So just finding different ways that we can connect with the outside world and ways that we can reach people where they are. It's really easy, again, to hit send on an email, and all of a sudden you can reach thousands of people. But when you can't do that, you've got to get creative. You've got to rely on those partnerships, and you've got to really think outside the box to try to get the information that people are expecting from you. So we've learned a lot from that time. We've tried to make ourselves as a communication team more resilient so that we can use not only other channels, but rely on our partnerships with other entities and agencies here in the community. So we all work in a coordinated effort when there's a hurricane in Sarasota County. We have great relationships with the other communicators, the other PIOs that work for the cities and for the counties around us. And we all kind of work together to get messaging out, especially when it's a large scale disaster like a hurricane. We all need to be on the same page. We all need to be working from the same playbook and putting out the same information and sharing information amongst our different agencies so that people who might be following us on Facebook and they're seeing the same message, whether it's coming from the Sarasota County, from the city of Northport, city of Venice, wherever you live, you're getting the same information about the shelters, about evacuations and evacuation levels, so that we're all in a coordinated effort getting information out to residents. So the challenge that we had when we couldn't communicate, we were lucky to rely on our partners at Sarasota County who could help us amplify that message and let people know, here's what's going on in Northport. Price Boulevard is impacted. Here's the status of the shelters or those points of distribution where you can go to get relief and get food and water. So again, it was a really challenging time for us. We learned a lot. We got a lot stronger as a team. Those of us that were here, learning about the different ways that we had to be resilient, the ways that we had to get information out to people in different ways, flyers and sandwich boards and message boards out in the community, and kind of in an old school way before Facebook and social media and even websites, find ways that we could connect with people with that really important life-saving information. So something we really focused on since that time, since Hurricane Ian, is to build up our network of community partners, and we call them amplifiers here. Those people that can help us get the word out. We know that not everybody follows the city's social media pages or goes to the city's website, but we know that there are other voices out there in the community that can reach certain segments of our population in different ways. So we've enlisted and relied on those partners to help us get information out since then. We've started a program where we can share storm information every storm season with that basic information that we put out about what should go in your disaster preparedness kit. Where are your local shelters? Where are different places that you can go to get information? And so we're relying on them to help us amplify that message and get the word out. Because again, we know not everybody's going to follow us, or information might be hard to find. Some people might not always trust the city government, but they might trust somebody locally who they know from their church or from their business. And so we've enlisted those voices to help us get that information out. And we have open communication with them and share that information every storm season. And we're going to especially rely on them when we're in a disaster, when we need to get information out widely to everyone in the community. So that was definitely a big takeaway we've had since Hurricane Ian.
When we think about resilience, it's often found in the everyday choices people make long before a storm arrives. Jane DeClerc has lived in Northport for more than 40 years and serves as a lifeguard with Northport Parks and Recreation. Living in a flood-prone area has given her a unique perspective on preparedness, adaptation, and what it means to weather storms year after year. In her story, Jane shares how experience, planning, and a positive outlook have helped her navigate life in an area where flooding is a reality. Here's Jane's story.
When I think of resilience, I think of relating it to responsibility. A lot of times you have to do things that are important to get your job done. And as far as starting off where I live in a flood area, even getting the kids to the school bus, we've had to go through floodwaters with the kids in the kayaks to get them up to the bus in time to get them out to where they need to be. Working for the city, I'm part of the Emergency Operations Center, and I've had to come to work when we've had Ian, which I had 5.5 feet of water underneath the house. It's a lot of water there. I knew it's important that I showed up, mandatory too. So I kayaked out. A lot of the lifeguards found out about it. I am a lifeguard, and they all made fun of me. Like, when you kayak to work, like, why did you do that? Why didn't you just stay home? Well, to me, again, it's responsibility. You got to be someplace at a certain time, and when you're a team member, you got to take in mind that it's important that you show up, because when people start dropping out, it doesn't make a team anymore. And it's really important that you all stay together to get the job done. Resilience is do what you got to do to get to your position, to get what you have to do as a team, to get the accomplishments done, of especially with hurricanes, and even showing up for work as a lifeguard. When they start not showing up, zones have to be shut down, and it affects the whole aquatic center or the springs where, people need you. They're relying on you for saving lives and being a part of the team to get the job done. So I feel it's just important to take it seriously, show up and do what you got to do, and keep pushing on to be strong and be part of a team, all work together to get it done. Okay, so living on the Mackatchee Creek for 43 years. We first moved out here, we didn't even have garbage and mail. And living in a flood area, luckily our house was built up high enough. We learned through the years of making sure our tools were up higher, and even getting the kids to school with kayaks, making sure our kayaks didn't get stolen when we stashed them, and having to replace them, which sometimes it happened. Just keeping things going there with living here for 43 years and adapting to the environment that we chose to live in on the creek. We did not realize it was going to be the main drainage area for the whole rivers and everything else that flows through that area there. But luckily, it's taught me a lot about keep being resilient and figure out different ways to get the job done and figure out, okay, now we need gas for the lawnmower. We've got the kayak over there and take the gas out of the lawnmower we had up pretty high and kayaking down. My son lives close to us, kayaking down and trying to check on him and see how he's doing. And just even kayaking out to get groceries is pretty tough because when you have a kayak, you can't really put a whole lot on there. So eventually we did get like a little bigger boat to use out there because we needed it. So besides struggling and dealing with what's going on, you just got to front it, look it in the eye and say, well, we got to keep moving on and get things done and get to the point where we're getting comfortable. What I decided to do is I realized on the ditch, I'd get to the side of the ditch and I would start kayaking in the side of the ditch, which is a little bit deeper. But then you do get to the point where you can't kayak anymore. I would start off with water shoes, get out of the water, and then pull the kayak up as far as I could, and then try to stash it very deep into the woods so that no one would steal it. As the water got higher through the times we lived out there, I decided to get a pair of mud boots that would go up to my knees, and then I was able to walk in deeper water. That allowed me more access to get the kayak in deeper into the woods for safety where no one would steal it. I even got smart enough to put my address on my kayak and put on the back of it, please do not steal. So I would have a way to get home. With Milton and Helena, remember the storm kind of stalled for a while. I was in North Carolina actually rescuing my dad at that time with the first storm with Helena that went through. And then I got back in, and then Milton was starting to flood pretty good. So most of the times we see the water come up down there, so then we start taking the vehicles out to the road to Sumter Boulevard, and then it gets high enough where we can't bring the vehicles in. So then we start lining up our kayaks around the side of the house and tie them down where we can just pull them over to the stairs, and we get them on that way, load up what we need to do with the backpacks and stuff I have to bring in. We had to make sure we had all our clothes and stuff because we get locked down in here. We have to bring all our gear and food and stuff we needed. So that was a little challenging at the time because you only could put so much on the kayak.
During a hurricane, first responders are often called to help others while facing the same unpredictable conditions themselves. For Commander Polchi of the Northport Police Department, one of the moments came while conducting water rescues during Hurricane Ian. While trying to reach residents in need, the airboat he was on began experiencing difficulties, creating an unexpected challenge. His story is a reminder that even when plans change and obstacles arise, the mission remains the same, helping those who need it most. Here's Commander Polchi's story.
So I guess an interesting story from the post-hurricane. My partner and I, we were on members of our drone unit. We were going to an area to fly over the water control structure over off of Van Camp and Tropicare way down the end. There was a group of civilians, I think they referred to themselves as the Cajun Navy. They all brought airboats to help out, which was really, really great. As we were going up towards Tropicare, their airboat had some malfunctions, and they ended up having to basically abandon us on the side of the road. So we were standing. They couldn't get back. So my partner and I were essentially standing there waiting for another airboat to eventually come and rescue us, which thankfully they did, but it was pretty comical. Basically, we were going along Tropicare, and I don't know what was happening to it, but they had to paddle it back, essentially, back to where they were landing off from. We were pretty much on the Sumter area, just north of the interstate where we got some dry land. But yeah, we had to complete what we were assigned to do because that was an important task for us at that time. So we kind of just hoped for the best and figured that someone would eventually come around and rescue us from being stranded out there, but it all worked out. It's one of those that I guess you kind of always have to plan for the potential of failure, Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Thankfully, at that point, like I said, maybe we were only out there for maybe 5 minutes or so, and someone happened to be coming along with an airboat, and we were flagging them down, and so they came to our rescue, so we could go get our mission completed there, so we can get all that information to the powers that needed it. So it worked out. We've had a second one where there was a gentleman who got his car stuck on Tropicare and was calling for help. Apparently, either he owned or worked for a pet store. It was like a reptile type pet store or what have you. And as we got to him with our rescue vehicle, he requested that we put a large amount of, which I think was crickets and things like that, to feed said animals along in there with us. So that was a pretty interesting moment. We were able to drop him and all of his little critters off at the FEMA tent and get him back and rescued. But it was definitely an interesting time. That was my first experience with a major hurricane. I'm from up north, so we don't really, we deal with blizzards and things like that. But it was an interesting time taking airboats and all kinds of crazy different vehicles, and basically boating down a road that you drove down the day or two before. But we all really were able to come together. In the midst of all this, we were able to get some people out of their homes and identify who needed to be rescued. Also, as we were in these little side quests, essentially, we'd see like a bed sheet on the roof where it said 4 people ready to go or something like that. So we tested the limits of most every vehicle we were operating during that time to try to get as many people as we could. We were able to, even on, I guess they call it like a deuce and a half, so like the really, really big trucks, we were able to get family with their dogs, which was pretty comical, trying to lift them up and do all that. So it was definitely a pretty wild time.
When Hurricane Ian flooded neighborhoods across Northport, familiar roads quickly disappeared beneath rising water. Places that residents drove every day became waterways, making rescue efforts both challenging and unpredictable. For Commander Layden of the Northport Police Department, the storm meant navigating waist-deep water in areas normally used as roads and finding creative ways to reach residents in need. His story demonstrates how resourcefulness and a commitment to helping others can turn obstacles into opportunities to make a difference. Here's Commander Layden's story.
For Hurricane Ian, I remember the night we were in our PD2 substation over by Station 82, which was at Appomattox and Northport Boulevard, or Greenwood and Northport Boulevard. We were just the winds were starting to die down a little bit, so we had kind of gone out and met with the fire guys, and we weren't anticipating this kind of damage, so some of the fire guys decided to just jump on a brush truck and go see where we could help. We tried getting down Greenwood Boulevard, and the trees were so big, it took us a long time to get down there, but we ended up in the McKibben Park area. I have some videos from it because it was the devastation was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Probably 5 to 6 foot of standing water, and we were trying to respond to prior 911 calls and check houses that needed help. And we would jump off of the brush truck into the water, swim up to the houses, and then recover people from their houses. I remember a really, really cool old fella who was hiding in his attic. The water was chest high in the garage. There were gas cans floating everywhere. Everything smelled like gas and poo because of the sewage backup. So we got into the garage, and the fella was at the top of his attic, and I climbed up the ladder. I was like, "Hey man, hop on my back. We'll get you back to the truck." And I remember swam him back to the rescue truck, but it was very weird because these are streets that you walk, and now you're swimming and half walking through them, and I was tripping on trees underwater that you couldn't see, and mailboxes and all kinds of power lines and stuff like that. And I never thought at the moment, it was just like, hey, we'll just swim up there and get them, but didn't really think what could potentially kill you out there. Officer Sunderland, or now Sergeant Sunderland, and I were stationed at the substation, so we just hopped on to go help out. Because really, there was no communications. We weren't quite sure what the mission was at the time. It was probably midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. We just decided to do something and got out there. I think we pulled probably about 30 people out of their houses and then transported them up to the Morgan Center where that shelter was and dropped them off there. I know quite a few of them ended up having to get transported for hypothermia and other injuries and stuff like that. I don't want to get too specific. I remember some of them, but that's probably not good for a general podcast. I know the next day, so we got done on the brush truck around 7 in the morning, and then we turned around straight into search and rescue. Commander Polche and I were members of the drone team, and we had a very small drone that we took on our Bearcat, which is like our big tank mobile thing. And we were driving up in the North Sumter area near Gensley. The water was too high for even the Bearcat, so I would get on the roof of the Bearcat and launch my drone and then fly the neighborhoods and find people on their roofs or up in their driveways waving for help. And we couldn't really figure out how to get to them, but we were at one intersection. I remember seeing a John boat. There was a John boat in somebody's yard. So I hopped out and sloshed up to that guy's house and knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And I was like, well, we really need a boat right now. We didn't have boats at the time. So the neighbor came out, and I was like, hey, do you know this fella? Can you get a hold of him? And I believe he told me oh, they're from Canada. They're not going to be down for a while. And I was like, well, do you think he'd mind if I borrowed his boat? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So we We got dragged the boat down to the water. It started up, and I would fly the drone out, find the houses, tell the SWAT guys I was with, hey, this is the address or this is the road. They'd put the John boat up there, load the people up on the boat, bring them back to the Bearcat, and then we'd take them to the cool zone where they get picked up by FD or wherever else. So we did that. We used that boat for a long time, and there's a faction that Commander Polche talked about, the Cajun Army. We ran out of gas on the boat, and they came by in a big 4x4. They had tanks of fuel on the roof, and they refilled our boat probably 2 or 3 times that day. And we were able to get back there and get a whole bunch of people out there too. We returned the boat with a full tank of gas, better than we found it. And I left a note in his door, kind of jammed it in the door seam, gave him my name and number, said, hey, we borrowed your boat. Like, if there's anything wrong with it, call me. We'll fix it. We'll pay for it, whatever. And never heard from him. When you tie a boat off to the Bearcat, I learned a lot about inertia. So when the Bearcat comes to a stop, the boat doesn't. So we scratched a little bit of paint on the back of the Bearcat from the boat, jamming into it. Nothing, some white touch-up paint didn't help.
The stories shared today may be different, but they all point to the same thing: resilience. For Jason, it meant finding ways to keep residents informed during a hurricane. For Jane, it meant learning how to prepare for flooding and adapting to a life in an area where high water is a reality. For Commander Polche and Commander Layden, it meant doing whatever was needed to reach people who needed help, even when conditions made that difficult. None of these stories are really about hurricanes. They're about people. People adapting, helping each other, and finding ways to move forward when things don't go according to plan. As hurricane season continues, take a few minutes to make sure you're ready. Know your level. Make a plan. Stay informed. Sign up for emergency alerts at northportfl.gov/alerts. It may seem like a small thing now, but having the right information at the right time can make a big difference. And when the storm passes, don't forget to check on your neighbors. Thank you for listening to Voices of Northport. Stay safe, stay prepared, and we'll see you next time.